Welcome to the American Valor podcast. Today, we are speaking with Scott Baxter. Scott is an Army veteran and pilot with 40 years of experience and trained future pilots up until yesterday, which is amazing how you have done that post military career. He flew on countless missions to include Navy ships and safely transporting senior flag officers around the world. Scott, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you for having me. Um, like I said, I'm originally from New York and grew up in New York, and actually was a lacrosse coach at Huntington High School in lacrosse for a short time. Then I went into the Army and flew helicopters for the Army for about almost 13 years, and then was asked to work at Bell Helicopter here in Fort Worth, Texas. So I got to do both the military side of helicopter flying as well as the civilian side. When I was 52 in 2011, I went back in the Army Reserves and I flew fixed wing aircraft, King Air turboprop, and then eventually the last 3 years of my service was in a Citation jet, and then retired in 2019 from the Army and the Army Reserves, and up on up until yesterday, I kept flying helicopters in the civilian world, and yesterday was my last flight where I got to fly Santa. So it was pretty rewarding time.
Absolutely. And what a trajectory and experience there. And I know the reserve side, you get to work in a civilian job and then come back in and do your service time, but very vital to the service that we provide as a nation. So thank you for your service there. And thank you for all you did on the aviation front. I was a meteorologist and aviation forecaster, so I know that a lot of dash ones or 175 dash ones were written as you
Yeah,
was going around this world doing what we call God's work, right? But thank you,
right.
God, for all that you've done. Now, folks, at the Bob Feller Act of Valor Foundation, we strive to educate, support, and recognize by instilling the timeless values of service, sacrifice, legacy, and citizenship. Now, Scott, based on the pillars mentioned, I would like to start today's conversation with service. After 40 years as a helicopter pilot, what does service mean to you, and how has your career shaped your understanding of serving others?
Well, I think first off, I would like to say that if you love the job you do, it's not really a job. And so serving others, serving the community, serving our country was really a reward that I got to provide, I guess, if you want to call it that. But it's just making sure you're taking care of others, whether it's your family, whether it's the people in your military unit or your community, um, or the times that I flew off of the ship, making sure that the ships were safe. That was kind of our job, was patrolling the waters. So over in the Persian Gulf. So it's really an opportunity to provide. I don't know if you want to say comfort, but to provide an overwatch, if you will. That's what we were kind of doing.
Yes, and I know that the Purple Force, or we call the Joint Force, is very vital to all of the missions that we have, especially out in the Arabian Gulf and in that area. And so it's interesting to see the Army and Navy, we're rivals every once a year, right,
Oh
for a
yeah,
game.
yeah,
But out in deployment and out in actual operations, we're brother and sister like you don't know. And we share a mission, which is the U.S. mission, and it's so nice to see that camaraderie and that teamwork between the forces. in operation. Now, those deployments cause for sacrifices, right? They call for sacrifices. And talking about sacrifice, what are some of the greatest sacrifices you've had to make during your career, and how did you navigate the challenges they presented?
I think the greatest sacrifice that I had to give was not being with my family. Um, During the late '80s into the early '90s, I did 11 deployments with the Army and Navy. So we the deployments were shorter in duration, usually 45 to 60 days. But even when we were home, we had to deploy and go do training. So it was never really an opportunity to be around family, and you miss a lot of things. You miss your holidays, you miss birthdays, anniversaries, and that was always a challenge. And so how do you get through it? You just have to know that in our case with my wife, we've been married almost 40 years, and uh, it's respect for your spouse. And to me, I married one of the greatest ladies I could have ever married, because she has stuck with me through all of these hardships, and she's an amazing lady. So I've been very, very fortunate.
Yes, indeed, and so have I. God bless those military spouses that uh, give equally and sometimes even more of the
Yeah,
sacrifice side for our service. And I know during the totality of service, it really calls for a lot of sacrifice on their part. So kudos to them, and thank your wife. Once
well,
we're
yeah. Yeah, and when I was going and flying off of the Navy ships, my daughter was born, so I wasn't home when she was born. And I know, having spent a lot of time with the Navy, that's a pretty common occurrence for Navy personnel, but maybe not necessarily for Army personnel. Um, but so I wasn't there for her to be born. Now, many, many years later, in 2018, I deployed again to Kuwait when I was flying the Citation jet for the reserves. And about a week or so before I deployed, my daughter said, "Hey, Dad, by the way, I'm pregnant." And I was like, "Oh gosh, here we go again." And I said, "Well, when are you due?" And she said September 15th, and that's when I was due to get home. So I ended up getting home 2 days before she had twins. So it was again, that's another one of those sacrifices that you hope you don't have to deal with. And I ended up being able to be home for it, and it was a great moment.
And I'm so happy that you were able to capitalize on that event. And we miss a lot of great events that are central to our family for the sake of the mission. You know, it's one of those calls to service that we know that what we're signing up for may be in an inopportune time for what the things that are happening around our family. But congratulations to her and her children, and to you, new grandpa after so long, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well, we talk about family, we talk about legacy, right? It's what we do sometimes is part of what we leave behind. And I'm looking at the back wall there, a history of service and legacy. So, over the course of your career, how have you worked to leave a legacy for future pilots and
yeah.
those inspired by your journey?
Well, the helicopter community is such a small community. And when I went to work for Bell, I started out as a production test pilot on the OH-58D helicopter. And eventually I went to the training academy where I started teaching helicopter pilots. Um, the amazing thing is, now in my later years at Bell, a lot of the guys that teach with me were prior 58D model pilots that I had either flown with years ago or they knew my name. And I think, you know, if you have to be a professional in whatever it is you're doing. And if you're a professional and you give it 110%, I think your legacy will hopefully take care of itself. Um, my efforts at Bell um, were, you know, do the best job you can, and even at Bell, between sacrifice and legacy, there was a lot of sacrifice traveling for Bell, 6 week trips around the world, and again, working 6 days a week. It definitely challenged you, but again, if you put that effort in and you strive for excellence in whatever it is you're doing, hopefully you're leaving a mark on the industry, you're leaving a mark on the people you work with, and you're leaving a lasting uh, legacy, a lasting friendship, and that's what I hope for. You know, uh, dealing with the people that I've worked with at Bell, are some of those folks are the best friends I have. So. The customers I've flown with over 27 years, 27 and a half years. Uh, just yesterday, I got phone calls from folks that I taught and flew with 20 years ago saying congratulations, and you know, you're retired, and that's fantastic. And those those phone calls, those text messages, those emails, those are the things that you cherish when hopefully you've left a good legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know the aviation community at large is very tight. There are some people that cross paths over the years. And I know a lot of the pilots, long after they've gone on to whatever endeavor they have after service, are always cherished in our hearts and our thoughts. There were many a pilot that I made dash ones for, and some of them, they weren't too happy when I would like no flight recommended, but they, that rapport and
Yeah,
that relationship builds after time, that you really do appreciate all that they bring to the service side, especially in an aviation community. We call them brown shoes
oh
in the
yeah,
Navy, but
yeah,
and it's a very great community of full, professionals all around, and it was nice to serve in that community when I was in service.
yeah. I always used to say, and I fly with several folks right now that are Navy, that are retired Navy pilots, and I always tell them, and I say this with the utmost respect, and I don't mean it as a hit against the Navy, but the Navy is an accident waiting to happen because it's such a dangerous environment to operate in. You're not in a building that's not moving. You're in a building that's moving and being affected by weather and the sea state and all of that. And I mean that in the in in the best possible way, that the Navy does an amazing job.
So well received. Thank you for that. And I know that out to sea, it's a whole different ball of wax when you're talking about aviation. But
Yeah.
thank you for that. Now, you're training, or you've been training all this time, future pilots. They're going out to do God's work now, and you've created a world of great citizens, right? What we endeavor to do when we're teaching and training those that will come after us. So, how has your role as a helicopter pilot influenced your perspective on citizenship and your commitment to contributing to the greater good?
Well, a lot of the pilots that I train are they are law enforcement pilots, EMS pilots, medical services pilots, and those are some of the greatest people I've ever gotten to work with, and the sacrifice that they make on a daily basis in their job, whether it's law enforcement or EMS. It's been my honor to work with them, and I, I hope they've learned as much from me as I've learned from them on what they do on a daily basis. And to me, I told you before that I got to fly Santa yesterday. That's one of the things I've done for 25 years in a local program here. Bell supports a program where we fly Santa to all of the local elementary schools. There's about 22 of them. And, it's just amazing the effort that goes into it by this group of people that want to support these kids and support that value of Christmas and faith. And, it's one of the things I'm going to continue to do even after this holiday season. I'm going to stay involved with the program, even though I'm not flying. I'll help with the ground crews and the organization of the whole program. So, and it's something that is actually growing in the area here, where more and more elementary schools are getting involved. So, um, it's just a wonderful experience. I always say it's the two best days of my year when I get to do that.
Well, it's great to see companies get involved in the community to
Yeah,
build what we call citizenship. It's a very important as citizens to get involved with those around us because that's what makes our nation what it is. One hand helping the other, lifting
absolutely,
each other up. During these seasons, it's not all jolly for those out there that this time doesn't block out, you know, the times of pain. No, it's all involved in there, right? We have loss of life of loved ones. We have things, emergencies that come up. We have people
absolutely,
not in a good financial footing. There's just so much that comes along this time. And so to have a company and have citizens like yourself go out and join in the giving and join in the creation of happiness and hope is heartwarming to say the least. So thank you for that, and now your continued support of that program, which I know you will enjoy thoroughly. Now,
absolutely.
our audience is listening. They say, "Hey, Scott is a great guy. Where can they find you? Where can they support you? Maybe they want to support that mission for next Christmas."
Well, the group that I'm associated with is called Santa's Texas Team, and it's based out of basically Bedford, Texas, and we support the schools in the Hurst Euless Bedford Independent School District, and it's about a month-long program. It's not just the elementary schools; they go to nursing homes. The Scottish Rite Hospital. We've been there before to see the kids, and it's just an amazing experience. And I'm just going to enjoy my retirement, stay busy. I want to. I used to coach lacrosse, as you know. I coached Peter um, when he was in high school, so I'm feeling very old, but. But I'm hopefully going to start coaching again in the spring now that I'm retired, and try to give back in that sense too. And to work with young kids and see their development is one of the greatest joys you can have. So that's one of the things I'm going to try to do as well.
Absolutely great to hear. Scott, thank you so much for sharing all that you've done throughout your career. Thank you for continuing to contribute to your community there locally and encourage other citizens to do the same. Thank you for all that you've done. And if there was some future pilot out there listening, what would you tell them?
Just don't give up. Don't give up. There's a lot of different avenues to get your time and to build your time. Uh, but if it's what you truly love, and if it's what you desire to do, find a way to do it. There's ways to do it, and ways to fly. Um, Certainly, the military is a wonderful experience. I've never regretted being in the military. My dad and my brother were both military, and that's an amazing way to get started in the industry. And you bring a lot to the industry when you go through your military training. So that's always a very good option. As you and I both know, the military had a great effect on us, and I think it's a great way to go.
I agree. Now, folks, for more information on the foundation, please visit us at our website, activevaloraward.org. And on behalf of the Bob Feller Active Valor Foundation, thank you all for joining us on this episode.